is the motion to sunshine the El Paso DEA Central Information Center. Anything that the DEA does goes to an information center in El Paso, Texas. So we want to sunshine them and find out everything that they did on this court case.
What does that mean? Make them transparent?
Make them transparent.
Make the feds transparent?
Exactly, because there's no accountability for the DEA.
Okay.
So if that motion passes and if Judge Zimmerman supports that, that's historical. That's the Henshu-Rawbacher that we were trying to get through on the congressional level, which we didn't, which was to prevent narcotic agents and federal agents from receiving personal award from taking, pirating from a medical cannabis community. So these three motions are going to be heard at 1:30. It'll probably take about an hour. Then after that, we come back here, we're going to order a bunch of pizza, and we're going to get ready to go to hear about Sunset Dispensary.
Yeah. Is that the Planning Commission? Or?
No, that's the Board of Appeals.
It's the Board of Appeals, okay.
And the Board of Appeals has hung their hat on three things that I want everybody to be very clear with, because we're at the point where if we can prevent them from adopting their findings, we might be able to open up another club that's allied with us. The three things that they're hanging their hat on are the letter from Captain Denise Schmidt. Remember, we went to the Planning Commission and the Police Commission and basically had that dissolved. Today, Petra DeJesus from the Police Commission is writing a letter to the Board of Appeals telling them that that did not hold water. That's one of the things they were hanging their hat on. The second thing that they were hanging their hat on was a typo in the medical cannabis actual legislation. So we've been working with Ross Mercarini's office, who is working to take care of the typo mistake. So that's the second thing. The third thing, oh, did this finger come up? Did this finger come up? The third thing that they are hanging their hat on is the Chinese Gospel Church. And they all pour out, and we're going to, at 5 o'clock, we're going to be entering a war. There's going to be a lot of people there from the Chinese Gospel Church that want to shut this down. And their main complaint is, what about our children? There has never, ever in the history of medical cannabis spanning 15 years now in California been even an incident report about a cannabis dispensary allowing a child in with schools that have been near grandfather dispensaries, etc. What we're worried about our children really means is we're worried about our property value. It has nothing to do with children. And that's a part of what we need to articulate at public comment, is what you're worried about is your property value, and we have no adverse effect on your property value. As a matter of fact, we increase business to local small businesses when our community comes into the vicinity. And the other thing that we're worried about, we've all heard of selective arrest, right? That means instead of arresting Carrie, I'm going to arrest Jonathan. Selective arrest is usually talked about in a racial situation, right? That's what we have a long history of in America, of people being pulled over simply for being a person of color. When we're talking about selective enforcement, what we're talking about is that we have a new dispensary in the Mission that is actually within 1,000 feet from a school. But the Planning Commission didn't care because it's where?
In the Mission.
So in the Sunset, even though we're outside of 1,000 feet, because people are homeowners, somehow it's different. That is selective enforcement, and that is illegal. And so what we want to talk about when we get up at the Board of Appeals is that the Board of Appeals has a duty to recite the law properly, and that this is a legally zoned dispensary. If they are only reacting from fear and prejudice, then they're going to waste the city's money in Superior Court, because that's our next step. If we get denied tomorrow at the Board of Appeals, then we have to go up to Superior Court, and then the city has to spend money on litigation against us. So when we go and speak at the Board of Appeals tomorrow, we're going to have to tell them, listen, we don't need to waste resources on prejudice. Right? And I'm trying to have people, I've been working with the president of the board, I've been working with the planning commission and the police commission to get it across to the city attorney that he's about to have a really big problem on his hands if they adopt these findings tomorrow, because we are a sanctuary status city, and that's the other thing that everybody needs to bring up at public comment on Wednesday night. And I'll have some talking points for everybody, but I want everybody to be really clear that the sanctuary city was not just like a non-binding resolution. It's an ordinance. It's an actual law. So, in other words, there's two communities that have sanctuary status. Us and immigrants. Can you imagine if someone went up before the Board of Appeals and said, don't permit this business because this person isn't a citizen, they're only a resident? Do you know what civil rights outcry that would create in the city? Now, if we stay numb and silent while people are trespassing on our civil rights and saying, not in our neighborhood, that's what we're facing tomorrow, and it's huge. Please leave the safe out of it. Business.
Good, hey, you.
John, that's John.
They don't want it, I got this guy.
He has a lovely thing for me, but I would... Oh, it's so good because he totally loved
Oh, yeah.
iguana. So it was like deep knowledge.
Right, yeah. The iguanas are awesome.
What's his name?
Draco.
It's a male?
Yep.
Okay.
Draco.
How old is he?
15.
Oh, he's an old guy? Is that old for iguana age?
Midlife.
All right.
Live a while. Yeah, hang out. Oh, yeah. It's like the average is 22 and a half.
Well, let's see if he makes it on the Axis of Love show. Kia. Hey, Kia. Kia.
Right? So what we're gathered here for today is this is the start of Medical Marijuana Week. It goes right up to 2/15. On our first day of action, we got quite a lot of action going on. After we eat today, the patient advocates will be going up to the federal court building. We will hear 3 motions for many defendants. And what it's about is a case that started in Los Angeles. They raided a dispensary. They raided Scott and Diane's dispensary in Los Angeles. They're bringing it here because they don't think that we'll be able to create a patient movement to defend. I don't know what they're thinking, but here we are. And the part that's interesting here with the dispensary that got raided was that the LAPD forgot to tell the judge that signed the search warrant one thing, that it was a medical cannabis dispensary. So the providers took the LAPD to court and won. Before a panel of 3 judges, the judges were concerned about something that I want everybody to talk about today because it's a bunch of shit. And that is, the judges were concerned about the rewards that the federal narcotics and the local narcotics were going to split amongst themselves. The reasons that we haven't ended the drug war is because people are profiting from it, and the people that often profit the most are the people that raid the providers. And this 3-panel of judges understood that. So guess what? They won. They got return of property. Next chapter. And that's beautiful. Round of applause for winning at the 9th Circuit, right? Let's give Scott Diane a round of applause for taking it that far. But then once we got to the 9th Circuit, and you know, you think, well, that's a great end of the story. But guess what? Some people were upset about medical cannabis providers winning and getting back the patient's medicine, so somebody turned the case over to the federal government. The federal government comes and they raid, and they take not just him, but just about anybody associated with him. We have 20 people that are going and 20 people that are looking at 20 years for simply providing medical cannabis.
They got 20 defendants? You have to be kidding.
Not kidding. So, today we're going to hear 3 motions at the federal level, which are very, very interesting. One is a motion to basically get accountability and transparency.
Can you help me here? I'm trying to film and this dog is going to be a problem. Thank you. I don't know, but can you pull him over there? My hands are tied. Thank you.
Anything the DA does has an electronic footprint that
Thank
goes
you.
to El Paso, Texas. But as citizens, we should know what's there. So let's thank these folks for trying to sunshine a federal agency. That's really critical. Very, very critical. And so there's 2 other side motions that the patient advocates who are going to go to the federal courtroom will hear. It's going to be a very interesting day. If you are involved in the medical cannabis movement, you might want to bring a pen and paper with you to jot down what's going on today. When we go into the federal building, we only want folks with us that are prepared to sit there for a couple of hours. You know, we're fine with feeding everybody. There's no obligation. We know the first part of compassion is feeding the whole tribe. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right. Thank you.
So after we go up to the federal building, we're going to go back to our community center and have some 420 pizza. Unfortunately, our community center is not big enough for everybody, which is a crying shame, and we're working on that. We're trying to get a bigger building so that we can better serve our entire community. But at 5 o'clock, we're going to a very interesting hearing. We're trying to open up a medical cannabis dispensary in the Sunset.
Yeah.
But we've encountered a lot of unfair, vindictive, and prejudiced persecution from Supervisor Carmen Chu. So we got all the way through our planning commission. We're legally zoned. All of that. But then they appealed us, and it was the Chinese Gospel Church with Supervisor Chu that appealed us. Something interesting about Supervisor Chu. Guess where her funding comes from?
Chinese